So we can see in 2020, sales activity went through the roof in Peterborough and actually set a 10-year record. So we're looking at 300 sales transactions. Then residential new listings in September only, we can see that it's below the 10-year average, but not significantly below the 10-year average. And then when we're looking at the residential active listings, though, September only, we can see that, it's by far the lowest it's ever been over the last 10 years. And in fact, is 66% below the 10-year average. So that's something to really pay attention to. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the real estate market in Peterborough, Ontario. Now, Peterborough is a market I knew nothing about before diving into this video. I live on the west side of Toronto, so it's on the east side of Toronto. That's the other end of the universe as far as I'm concerned. But as I dive deeper into Peterborough, it's actually a very interesting market, and I definitely see some interesting upside and potential long term. So let's just jump into and discuss what's going on with the Peterborough, Ontario real estate market. So the first thing that I'd like to highlight for you guys when we're talking about Peterborough is, let's just get you up to speed in case you're not familiar with this market either. It's essentially an hour-and-a-half drive from Toronto. Right now, the population's hovering around just over 80,000. The total metropolitan area of Peterborough, we're looking at about 120,000. And it's really an interesting market that just snuck underneath my radar, and I don't really have a good reason for it. I guess the first thing I'm going to jump into when we're talking about Peterborough is just long term, what does the future hold? So by 2041, the city is expected to grow to 115,000 people and 58,000 jobs, which is an increase of about 32,000 people and 14,000 jobs. So that's a pretty impressive increase overall, both from a population as well as a job perspective. And I'd love to see that laid out in the Peterborough official plan. And then the next thing I want to highlight for you guys is the 2018 City of Peterborough Residential Monitoring Report. So unfortunately, I couldn't find a more up-to-date report, but what this really does is just dive into a lot of information about what's going on with the population, households, economic characteristics, all that great stuff. And again, as always, there'll be links in the video description down below to all the different reports and websites that we're checking out. But I'll leave it up to you guys to really spend the time to check it out. But the first things you're going to notice is that Peterborough has an aging population. So when we're comparing it to the rest of Ontario, we can see the city of Peterborough has over 20% of its residents above the age of 65. Whereas when we compare that to the rest of Ontario's just above 15%. So there's about a 5% gap there, and that is significant because it's certainly going to impact things like the participation rate of the overall population when we're looking at it from an employment perspective. Then we've got some breakdowns on the different age groups and things there. We've got breakdown of the different family units. So as well, just tons of information. We don't have enough time to go through everything in today's video, so I'll leave it up to you guys to jump in and dig deeper into this subject matter. But there is a lot of great information that I encourage you to spend some time and check out. Now, the next thing I'll just highlight for you guys real quick, this is from Wikipedia, and this is the top 10 major employers in the Peterborough region as well. So we've got Peterborough Regional Health Center, we've got Trent University, we've got Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, we've got the Central East Community Access Center, the Ministry of Natural Resources, City of Peterborough, Fleming College, Aon Inc., Pepsi Co. Foods, which is Quaker Oats, then the Peterborough, Victoria, Northumberland, and Clarington Catholic District School Board. So what we're going to notice there is a lot of the employment is dominated by public institutions. So we've got a lot of government employers as well as post-secondary institutions that really drive a lot of what's going on in the Peterborough region. And so while we're on the subject matter of talking about the post-secondary institutions, I'll just quickly draw your attention. They've got Trent University. So the Peterborough Trent University campus has 9,000 undergraduate students and nearly 700 graduate students enrolled at that campus. And then we've got Fleming College, which has over 6,800 full-time students and over 10,000 part-time students. So again, just a good fact to know when we're thinking about the different factors of the Peterborough real estate market. So when we're thinking about a market that has less than 100,000 total population base, having 9,000 university students and 7,000 college students is going to have an impact on that local real estate market. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the workforce. And first of all, I just want to give a shout out to the city of Peterborough. There's a lot of different cities I've researched over the course of this YouTube channel, and I really love some of the graphs that you shared that I'm going to share with you guys right now. So when we're looking at the workforce, Peterborough's got this great set of graphs here that we can check out, and we can just kind of see what's the education attainment of residents. So we can see, 30% are just going to be high school or equivalent. We've got 30% with other degrees, and then once we're getting into bachelor's, we're looking at just under 15%, 13.7 to be specific. But then let's move on to the occupation of residents. So we can see that there's about 1,300 in the arts and culture, about 5,000 in business and finance, just over 5,000 in education, law, and community and government services, just over 3,000 in health, 3,000 in management, 1,600 in manufacturing and utilities, 2,300 in natural and applied sciences, which that's interesting to me that there's more people in the natural and applied sciences than there is in manufacturing. So Peterborough really isn't a heavy manufacturing city. It's going to have a lot more education, a lot more health and sciences, and in fact, even more just general sciences, which is interesting, not something I see every day when we're looking at different Canadian real estate markets. Moving on, we've got sales and services, which is by far the largest with over 11,000 jobs, and then about 4,600 in trades and transportation and equipment operators. And as we continue to scroll down here, we can just see residents, industry of employment. So this is just another way of kind of breaking it out based upon different categories. So we can see healthcare and social assistance as well as retail by far the largest industries for employment. And then after that, we've got educational services and accommodation and food services. And so if you didn't know, let's take a quick look again at the map here on Peterborough. Just to the north, you've got Kawartha region, which is really well known as a vacation destination for both people in Peterborough as well as a lot of people in eastern Toronto naturally want to go there for their vacations. So again, tourism is a big factor here in the city of Peterborough and something that we need to be aware of as real estate investors. Continuing to go down, we've got some mode of transportation, we've got the average commuting time and the time residents leave for work. Not really particularly important to us as real estate investors, but just thought that was kind of neat to share. And then when we're looking at a review of the business climate going on overall in Peterborough, again, they've got a set of handy little graphs here for us to check out. So the first one is the total labor force. So we can see what's going on in the Peterborough total census metropolitan area as well as the city of Peterborough specifically. We can even see things like what the average hourly wage is, which was 25.74 for, I guess that's actually for the province of Ontario. But we can see in Peterborough, there's almost 5,000 different businesses that are registered with the city. Then we can see what's going on with the unemployment rate. So we can see back, from 2010 to about 2013, the unemployment rate, I should say, in Peterborough wasn't looking that good. It was hovering around the 10% or consistently flirting with that range. But since 2016, it's been around the 5%, 6%, and kind of bouncing in that range. As of 2019, the city has it pegged at 6%, which was right around the Canadian average as well. So we can see that Peterborough maybe has a little bit more extremes, ups and downs, but nothing that dramatic overall compared to the rest of Canada. Now, if we go a little bit further up here, we can also jump around and see a few other different indicators when we're looking at the city from a business investment perspective. So looking at the growth rate overall for Peterborough, we can see it's a lot slower than the rest of Ontario and Canada. And this is kind of a reoccurring theme with a lot of Eastern and Northern Ontario, so something to be aware of as a real estate investor. But like we mentioned, it is going to see a lot of growth over the next 20 years from a population as well as a an employment base perspective based upon their 2016 official city plan. Then we can see what the median individual income is. So again, Peterborough's right in line with Canada. So Peterborough's was $34,960 and Canada was $35,680, so less than $1,000 difference as of 2017 for the median income. Then we're looking at household indicators. Again, we can see the different family size units and the distribution there. We can see the types of households, so whether there's children, how many children. When we're looking at the dwelling indicators, we can see that Peterborough is by far dominated by single detached homes. In fact, almost 60% of the population lives in that type of dwelling unit compared to Canada's average, which is 54%. Otherwise, we can see There's a small amount of 5-story plus apartment buildings, slightly larger amount of under 5-story apartment buildings. And we're looking at home ownership overall. It's just a little bit above the Canadian average. The Canadian average being 32% homeowners, and in Peterborough we're going to see 38%. So again, something for us just to be aware of as real estate investors. And when we're looking at the city of Peterborough from a construction period, we can see that, pre-1960, it was crushing the Canadian average, but since then it's been slowly lagging compared to the rest of Canada from just a construction start perspective. Then finally, development indicators. I think this is just interesting as well, and I love the fact that Peterborough's website's made this so easy for us to check out. We've got the value of building permits. So in 2018, we can see that there was about $221 million in permits. Now, in order to really get perspective on this, you're going to need to go research other cities and compare it and look at from both a population, economic, and GDP standpoint, where Peterborough stacks up to the competition. But then looking at just the overall number of building permits and the number of housing stats, we can see that they've been trending down since the early 2000s in the Peterborough region. So definitely something to be aware of. But again, if you go back and look at what was going on with the population, we might find that the population was growing a little bit faster, and hence the justification for the greater number of building starts and building permits in the early 2000s versus the much more suppressed number that we're seeing here later throughout 2008 on to 2018. Finally, when we're talking about Peterborough, let's jump into the specific Canadian Real Estate Association statistics around Peterborough. So I've got the September statistics up here right now. So we can see in 2020, sales activity went through the roof in Peterborough and actually set a 10-year record. So we're looking at 300 sales transactions. Then residential new listings in September only, we can see that it's below the 10-year average, but not significantly below the 10-year average. And then when we're looking at the residential active listings, though, September only, we can see that, it's by far the lowest it's ever been over the last 10 years. And in fact, is 66% below the 10-year average. So that's something to really pay attention to. So while Peterborough may not be seeing robust growth, we're seeing a lot of pressure from just a lack of supply. So this is something to really be aware of as real estate investors, because population growth isn't the only factor we should be taking into consideration, but it definitely is a big one. Then when we're looking at months of inventory, again, we're at a 10-year low right now at under 1% of months of inventory. So this is dramatic. This is really important for a real estate investor to realize, because if we start to see the volume of inventory increase, well, then we're really going to see probably prices teeter off or drop. And that's something that I'm going to want to pay attention to as an investor if I'm looking to break into the Peterborough market. And now, like a lot of the rest of Canada, we can see the market's been on a tear from an average purchase price perspective throughout 2020 until we in fact topped and beat in September the $625,000 threshold, which when you compare that back to 2019's highs of under 500,000, the fact that we're seeing like a 25% increase in the average purchase price of a home sale in Peterborough and the Kawarthas region is really important for us to understand as real estate investors. So if we start to see that supply increase, we could probably see prices start to really pull back. So that's something I'm going to want to pay a lot of attention to, because otherwise there's not a lot of pressure there. But because we're seeing low building starts in the Peterborough region, again, we may not see a flood of inventory unless for whatever reason a bunch of homeowners all get spooked at the same time. All right, that's it for the Peterborough real estate market recap here for 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. If you're a Peterborough investor, or maybe you've just been born and bred and lived there all your life, jump in the comment section down below. Share with us your perspective when it comes to your local real estate market. What are you investing in? What are you seeing other investors do? And if you think I got anything right or wrong in this video, let me know in that comment section down below. And finally, if there's a real estate market in Canada you would like to see me do a deep dive in, let me know in that comment section, and you might see it on a future YouTube video quite soon.